now for something completely different.
Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. I came here for the truth. Are you planting seeds or growing weeds? Community is our family, faith, and friends. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. Welcome to Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show, and we're putting another episode together here in the Northern Command Center of Enterprise, Utah. We are going to be talking, let me give you the date. Today is the 19th. Yeah, July 19th, 2026. And we're talking to the people around the community up here in Enterprise and going through the various people and what they do and their lives. And as our history channel goes, it's not really the history channel, but it's our history channel. So today's show is going to be with someone I've known now for, about 15 years or so. I'm thinking somewhere about that, here in the community, and she works with the school district. She does all kinds of stuff with church and kids, and she's very musically talented. Very envious of that, but not envious enough to go actually put any effort into becoming musically talented myself. So, folks, without further ado, I'm going to say hello and welcome to the show, Jana Dunford. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's good to have you here, and hopefully it's an enjoyable time here. And like I said, we're just going to talk about you and your growing up, and we can start with there. Where did you start your life? We know being born and raised and such like that, and and then eventually we'll get ourselves here into Enterprise, because that's where we both live here now. But
well, when people ask me where I'm from, which I've been asked hundreds of times, I've started saying I'm from Earth. I'm an Earthling because I've lived so many places. And I started my life, I was born in Hendon, London, England. My father he was getting his master's degree at the University of London. And so my parents had recently married and moved from Provo, Utah at BYU to London. And so they didn't have any money. They lived with a couple in their house. And when I was born, they put me in a little drawer with a pillow because that's how much space was in that room. And so I was there for 6 months. So when my dad finished his degree, we moved to Chicago. And he was getting his PhD at the University of Chicago. And so we lived in Chicago for a couple of years. And then my dad got his first teaching job in the Bahamas at the College of the Bahamas. Sorry.
It's okay.
And so we moved from Chicago to the Bahamas. And the only memory I have of Chicago is that we lived in a tall skyscraper. And I remember playing at the little teeny park at the bottom of the skyscraper. There was a stone turtle there, and it was snowing. Lots of snow, and we were trying to climb on this turtle. I say we, my little brother and I. And later on, when I asked my mom about that memory, she said that was actually the day before we moved to the Bahamas. Oh. And that's probably why I remember it, because it was such a stark contrast in the weather. From snowing to beautiful beaches and us going there. And so we moved to the Bahamas, and we were there in the Bahamas for about 2.5 years. And my dad taught at the College of the Bahamas. And he's a sociologist. He's a very curious kind of person. He likes to know a lot about the world and cultures of the world. And so that took us on a lot of adventures. And I was there in the Bahamas when I was 3 and 4 years old. We lived in a pink apartment building. We walked to the library frequently, and I have memories of this library, which was actually the old jail on the island, and it was shaped as either a hexagon or an octagon, but it was that kind of a shape, and they had turned it into a library. And so each jail cell was a room in the library, and so they all the jail cells had books in them, and you got it was a cool library. It was 3 floors tall, and they had special
cool.
It was special collections up on a floor. Anyway, we did that a lot. We played at the pool right across the street, and I remember playing with the tadpoles there and sitting on the edge of the pool, and that's where my mom taught me to read when I was 3. So I've been knowing how to read forever. And we did go to the beach, although I don't actually have memories of the beach, which is interesting. But I do have memories of our house. I remember my mom being scared to death that a tarantula came crawling across the floor one night and being very hot. And trying to go to sleep when it was really, really hot and playing with my fingers in the light from the streets, the street lamps, and, making finger silhouettes on the wall with my fingers. I also remember one time when one morning we woke up and I was sick. I got the chicken pox, so I didn't go to preschool. And I stayed home, and my dad said, even though I was sick, Jana, look out the window. We were all in bed, but he said, look out the window and see if the car is out there. And I got up and I looked out the window and I said, nope, it's not out there. And I, climbed back down. He's like, Jana, go look out the window and look, and see if the car's there. I said, no, it's not there. And a third time, Jana, look up and down the street and see if the car is out there. We had this little red car. It should have been right outside the window so you could see it, but it wasn't there. And I said, it's not out there, Dad. And he got up, and sure enough, our car had been stolen.
Oh.
And I wasn't lying. Anyway, as he ended up having to go hunt all over the island, and finally, it can't go that far. It's an island, Yeah. And so he finally found it in a parking lot of the store. And the problem was that because it was an island, there were only so many keys available. And so he said some of the keys, they repeated every 5th car. So if you found the right key, you could break into people's cars and steal them. And so we had an adventure with that.
Wow. Okay. I've never heard anything like that before, but yeah, on an island, where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go?
He thinks it was some guy just that, wanted to go on a date with his girl or something like that. Highly possible, because nothing happened to it. It was just left in the parking lot.
Oh, okay. Well, good enough.
But
did your dad get the teaching position because he had been in London, got his degree from there, or was it? Would they have taken him over someone because he, because I think Bahamas is a British colony.
Yeah, it was a British colony, but I don't know if it was that. All I know is that he applied to lots and lots of things over the years.
Okay.
Lots of things. Just anywhere he could apply to, he would apply, and that one he got.
Nice.
And so, yeah. I do also know that we were the only members on the island, LDS members of the church on the island at the time. And so there was no church, there was no building. We were the only people there. And so my dad got permission from the closest state to us, which would have been in Florida, to have sacrament meeting at our house. And so we would just have it there with our little family. And our little family consisted of my mom and dad, myself, my brother, and then my sister who was born there.
Wow.
So it was just the 5 of us.
Was your brother born where?
My brother was born in Chicago.
Okay. So
England.
London.
Yeah.
Chicago
and the Bahamas.
And Bahamas. Okay.
That's right. Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah, I enjoyed being there. I know my mom did not enjoy it all the time because there were rats in the laundry room, and after a while I learned that every apartment on our street had been broken into except ours. And so we were kind of felt like a target because we were the only people who hadn't had problem yet. But there was also a really big fire that happened on the block over and burnt the apartment building down. But so I don't know which of those things, triggered my parents leaving, maybe all of them. But we eventually left there. And moved to California, moved to Los Angeles after that. So I don't know. Do you want to say anything else about the Bahamas?
No,
We had a lot of adventures there. I remember I remember going to the college where my dad worked and looking out the window where his office was, and the field all behind it, whatever field it was, had all been burnt by fire. Somebody had set it on fire, but they got it out so the college was not burned. But I remember there were a lot of different things that happened there. I remember our neighbor across right by us was this boy, and he was able to climb palm trees, and he climbed all the way up to the top and got the coconuts down for us, which was awesome.
Something you usually only see if you go to the Polynesian Cultural Center in
Right.
Hawaii. So
yeah. So anyway, so things I remember about that. I remember playing with the snails under the bushes. Whenever it rained, we'd say, "Can we go play outside?" And so we'd put our swimming suits on and go play. My brother and I would have snail races. Very, very exciting. Which snail's the fastest?
for how long the track was it?
Yeah, how long?
6 inches or so. It's much more than that. You're going to be there a long time.
I know.
That's
fun.
That's kids can make fun and have fun anywhere. They can come up with something to make themselves laugh. I don't know if kids today can do that because they have all these devices, and without them, I don't know if they would know what to do. But
they can. I have kids. we have adventures.
Good. It's good to see someone's doing that. It seems like there's too many that don't. But cool. Anything else in the Bahamas? Because Bahamas sound pretty cool, other than people stealing your car.
Well, I mean,
breaking into houses.
The things I remember were I'm sure all of the unusual things. All of the things that stood out from normal. One thing that I do remember, which was a pretty thing, was just walking through the trees. And down the road from us, we had, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a park. I don't think it was a park. I think it was just vegetation. And we just went walking through there. And I remember smelling the flowers. And I don't know if they were on the trees or what, but I didn't know what they were, but they always had a specific smell to them. And it wasn't until years later when I smelled those again that I realized, oh, this is the smell of the Bahamas. And they were hibiscus flowers.
Hibiscus. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they just have a certain smell. And every time I smell them, I'm like, it's the Bahamas. It's the Bahamas to me.
Isn't it amazing how smell can take you back to someplace and generate all these memories, and you can go, I remember this. Yeah.
And another one was the straw market. Walking through the straw market and just the smell of the straw and their woven baskets and their woven slippers and all of the bags, purses that people had, dolls and everything. The straw basket has very good smell and good memory for me. And I remember one other thing, and this is probably important when you fast forward to the future. But one day my dad said, "Come with me." And we went to a street, and he stuck me up on a wall, right? I'm a little kid. He just set me on a wall, stay there. And I sat there, and down the road came all this noise. It was a parade, and it was called Junkanoo. And it had all these dancers in flashy costumes and all kinds of music. And that was my very first introduction to rock and roll. And that has always stayed with me. That very first, I'm sure my mom sang me lullabies, but that hearing that parade come down the road with the whistles and the bells and the trombones and the trumpets and everything was just amazing to me. So colorful and bright, and that was my very first introduction to music, or memorable introduction to music. And ever since then, I have always loved music with a beat. Whatever it is, it's got to have a beat, and I love that.
What does that? You said Junkanoo?
Junkanoo.
What does that mean? Is there a meaning to it, or what?
Yes,
what's it about?
It has something to do with the slave people, that they would have, that once a year their owners would let them have a holiday, and it was usually right at New Year's, and would let them have a break. And I believe one of the owners, I may have this wrong, I think one of the owners his name was John Canoe. And so they, with their accent, they put it together, John Canoe, John Canoe,
Okay.
John Canoe. And so he let them have a day off. And on their one day off, they would have a celebration and they'd have this parade. So that's how I remember it. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So now that you've moved, I think.
Oh, wait. I remember one more thing.
One more. Let's
One
do
more,
another
sorry.
one. Yeah. No, let's do it.
I also, later on, I had a flashback later when I became a music teacher, because I was talking about music from foreign countries, and I started thinking about my time in the Bahamas, and I looked up about pirates and flamingos, because I have this thing where I love pirates. And I also think flamingos are really pretty. And I realized that when I was little there at 3 and 4 years old, we visited the Pirate Museum. And we also visited a flamingo park and watched the flamingos go around and do whatever dance or things they do. But because I was able to go and experience things about pirates, and I really like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies because of that, because it really reminds me of the Bahamas. And I just think it's so interesting what we introduce children to the very beginning of their lives, how it shapes them sometimes, or maybe all the time. But I just thought, I didn't realize that my love of pirates came from the Bahamas until I realized that we had been to a pirate museum and seen all of those things, and also that I had seen flamingos there. Anyway, that was a cool thing I learned.
Oh, that's a great memory.
Yeah.
Great memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite unusual. I've never been to anywhere in the Caribbean, but maybe one day. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm not one for that side. I love this. I love the Polynesian. I love going South Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I like going. But maybe one day go to the other side. Then you moved to California. Where in California?
We moved to Los Angeles. We moved into my grandma's house, my dad's mom, and she went on a mission to England to do family history work. And so we lived in her house for a year. And that was when I was in kindergarten. And I went to Ann Lagore Elementary School. At least that's what it was called then. And anyway, most of the kids in my class were Mexican, so they spent a lot of time trying to teach them English. And there were only 2 or 3 kids who were English speakers in my class. Myself and another 1 or 2 kids. But I think kindergarten was, for me, it was kind of regular. I think when I went to school there, I don't have a whole lot of memories of kindergarten besides this one kid getting hit on his bicycle and getting his leg broken. I remember that, but it didn't have much to do with me.
What, a car hit him or something?
Car hit him on the way to school, and
Oh,
but that wasn't about me.
that
Kindergarten was kind of regular school for me.
I don't think I want to go to school that bad to get hit by a car. I don't
know.
get out of school for the
we
day.
felt sorry for him.
Yeah,
But-
that's no good.
But we had a garden at that house, and our neighbors had a horse, and so I just felt like it was a happy time. Our cousins lived around a couple streets away from us, and so it was a good time. But while we were there, my dad was substitute teaching, so it wasn't a real job for him. So he was busy applying for more jobs. And at the end of that year, he was hired to work for McMurray College, which was a Methodist college in Jacksonville, Illinois. So we made a 3-day journey across America and moved into a house that we had never seen. And it was right next to the dorms of the campus right there. And this old house. And when we were talking about buying a house, I remember saying that we kids wanted stairs. We'd never had stairs. And we wanted to live in a house with stairs. And so we got that. And that was the first thing that we did, was run up and down the stairs. And we were so excited. But this was an old house with really like antique wallpaper. It didn't have carpet in it. It was an old house. And so my parents worked on fixing it up, nice, put carpet in, painting the walls and things like that.
Yeah.
And we lived
And
there.
where was that again?
It was in Jacksonville, Illinois.
Jacksonville, Illinois. Where is that in relation to Chicago?
4 hours south.
4 hours south, more towards Indiana, towards that area?
Well, down going towards St. Louis. It's
Okay.
headed down.
Well,
So
in
it's
that
about an
direction.
hour
Okay.
away from Springfield, the capital.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so we were there for 6 years while he taught at that college. And he really enjoyed the college. I think for me, elementary was a happy time, was a really happy time playing with my brother and my sister. And then I got a new sister. So, who was almost 10 years younger than I was there. My mom finished her bachelor's degree while we were there from that college. And what else happened? I remember a lot about the storms that would come through. That we had some good storms with lots of lightning and thunder, and a tornado scare where we had to go down in our scary basement and
Hide out there.
and hide out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah. England,
England, Chicago, Bahamas, Los Angeles.
back to Illinois.
Yes,
Okay.
to Illinois.
Boy, you're hopscotching all over the place.
That's
there.
right.
Boy,
So so we were there that whole time, and I had all of my elementary friends, that I went through elementary school with that whole time. And our ward, the LDS ward that we lived in, was not very big. It was kind of small ward. My parents both played the organ there. And my mom taught me piano. My mom taught me a lot of things. She taught me skills. She taught me sewing, lots of sewing, and taught me, all the music that I learned. And so now that I'm older, I realize that I must have picked up on that really quickly. And because by the time I was 10 years old, I could play some pretty fancy things. And I was called to be the primary pianist when I was 10. And
Wow.
yeah. And I realize now that was unusual. To me at the time, it was no big deal. I'm like, sure, I'll just play the piano for primary. No big deal. But now I realize that that's pretty unusual. And I remember the hardest song for me to play was a new song called Called to Serve. And the reason why that was so hard for me is because my hands were small.
Yeah.
And I couldn't reach an octave. And in fact, I have short pinkies. I don't know, compared to other people, I have short pinkies. And so it's really hard for me even now to reach more than an octave on the piano. And so that was the hardest one for me to play, but I could play all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah. And that's a very moving.
Oh, yeah.
You're
It's
on
boom,
the
boom,
ball.
boom. You got to,
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
You're just done.
yeah, you just have to
all over
pound
the
it.
place.
Yeah.
You're
And that was a new song. That was new because we had gotten the new hymn book, I think, and that was in there, and that was a hard one. But see, I was already playing hymns by that time. So anyway.
So you had some natural talent there in the music side and just picked it up real quick
Picked
and
it up quickly.
kept on going with it. Right on. Let me
Yep.
see where we're at right now before we go to the next one. We're like a minute away. So we'll stop it right here, and then we'll come back in just a second and start episode number 2. Believe it or not, that's one episode in the can. So we'll be right back in just a minute with episode number 2. Thank you for listening to Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show.